بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وهذا القول يرحمك الله في الطعن في الأسانيد قول مخترع مستحدث غير مذهوب صاحبه إليه ولا مساعد له من أهل العلم عليه، وذلك أن القول الشائع متفق عليه بين أهل العلم بالأخبار والروايات قديما وحديثا أن كل رجل ثقة وروى عن مثله حديثا وجائز ممكن لقاؤه والسماع منه لكونه ما جميعا كان في عصر واحد، وإن لم يأتي في قبل قد أنهما اجتمعا ولا تشافها بكلام، فالرواية ثابتة والحجة بها لازمة، إلا أن تكون هناك دلالة بينة أن هذا الرواية لم يلقى من روى عنه أو لم يسمع منه شيئا، فأما والأمر مبهم على الإمكان الذي فسرنا الرواية على السماع أبدا حتى تكون الدلالة التي بينا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So this other code, this view في الأسانيد قول مخترع, which questions the chain of transmission, has no sound basis, it is without precedent, and no scholar has endorsed such an idea. No reputable scholar has endorsed such an idea. The fact is that the common view, which is agreed upon by scholars of hadith and report, old and contemporary scholars, is that the reliable person who reports from one who is equally reliable, and the two might have met and exchange information because they were contemporaries, is valid and may be used as evidence, even though we have no report that they actually met and discussed anything. Only if we have clear evidence that this report never met the one he reports from, or never heard anything directly from him, does the hadith that has been reported become unacceptable and may not be used as evidence. If the matter remains possible and the meeting between them remains probable, then the report is taken as indicating that the reporter heard from the one he is quoting. This is a case unless provided otherwise. This is we have clarified or explained.
فيقال المخترع هذا القول الذي مقالته أو للدافع عنه قد أعطيت في جملة قولك أن خبر الواحد الثقة عن الواحد الثقة حجة يلزم به العمل، ثم أدخلت فيه الشرط بعد فقلت حتى يعلم أنهما قد كانت تلقايا مرة فصعد وسمع منه شيئا، فهل تجد هذا الشرط الذي اشترطته عن أحد يلزم قوله، وإلا فهلم دليلا على ما زعمت.
So he's saying that he said to this, the one who came up with this view, right, that we just spoke about now, and to the one who defends it, in the whole of what you have said, I think indicated that the report by one reliable person from another reliable person is valid evidence that must be implemented. You have subsequently introduced a further condition stating that we must first know that the two have met once or more, or that the one heard from the other. And you find this condition you are imposing, right, stated by anyone whose words must be taken, meaning that some reliable scholars of hadith. If not, then give us some evidence to prove your claim.
فإن ادعى قول أحد من علماء السلف ما زعم من إبطال الشريطة في تثبيت الخبر طولب به ولم يجد هو ولا غيره إلا إيجاده سبيلا، وإن هو ادعى فيما زعم دليلا يحتج به قيل وما ذاك الدليل.
بإمكان الإرسال في بيت
فإن قال قلته لأني وجدت رواة الأخبار قديما وحديثا يروي أحدهم عن آخر الحديث ولم يعاينه ولا سمع منه شيئا قط فلما رأيتهم استجازوا رواية الحديث بينهم هكذا على الإرسال من غير سماع والمرسل من روايات في أصل قولنا وقول أهل العلم بالأخبار ليس بحجة احتجت لما وصفت من العلة إلى البحث عن سماع رواية عن سماع راوي كل خبر عن راويه فإذا أنا هاجمت على سماعه منه لأدنى شيء ثبت عندي بذلك جميع ما يروى عنه بعد فإن عزب عني معرفة ذلك أوقفت أوقفت الخبر ولم يكن عندي موضع حجة لإمكان الإرسال فيه.
Okay, so they are saying the sharp of the pages read now before. A single report is that which does not fulfill the condition of the tawatir. Right, so we're done with it. But akhar tawatir. Whether it is reported by one reporter or more, there is disagreement about its status. But is agreed by a great majority of the Muslims, including the companions of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and their successors, right? And the scholars of Hadith fiqh and Usul fiqh is that the report by a reliable single reporter provides religious evidence that must be implemented. It imports probability, not certainty. Right? So it gives an example. He says that when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam or the Khulafa after him, when they sent messages, right? They told one person, the messenger, take this message to so and so and so and so, right? Even though that whatever, so they making nice though that is a narration. When that was taken to whoever his minister or whoever it was taken to, they had to implement what was being said there. Even though it was only coming through one person, right? So he says here, right? If he claims that any scholar of earlier generation stated the same condition, is required to prove it, right? He must produce his statement. Correct. So he must produce his statement, but neither he nor anyone else can produce anything of the sort. If he claims or alleges that his claim is based on clear evidence, he will be required to produce that evidence. Right? He may, on the other hand, say it is a fact that old and contemporary narrators report hadith one from the other without having met or heard anything from those they quote. So they permit themselves to narrate hadith from one another in a mursal way without having heard them directly. So they say all authoritative scholars agree that mursal reports is not valid as evidence because of all this. I find myself in need of ascertaining that each reporter heard the hadith from the one he quotes. He says, when I confirm that he heard something from him, I have thus confirmed whatever he reports from me. If I cannot determine that, I stop the report. I do not consider it as evidence because the possibility that it is mursal.
What they say is that the only reports
So this is someone is making a claim, right? Right? So he's claiming that Imkanul Liqa basically is not valid. Right? He says he must. So what he's saying is that if he has this hadith, right, and it's only Imkanul Liqa, right? Only a possibility of him. And there isn't another statement or another place where it shows that he actually heard from him, right? Then he won't use it as evidence, right? Yeah. However, if he hears if in another narration he uses those wording, right? Those sorry wording to say sami'atu or however, right? Or he read to me or he told me or you know, then you will accept all of his other hadith from the narrator.
فيقال له فإن كانت العلة في تضعيفك الخبر وتركك الاحتجاج به إن كان الإرسال فيه لازمك أن لا تثبت إسنادا معنعنا حتى ترى فيه السماع من أوله إلى آخره، وذلك أن الحديث الوارد علينا بإسناده هشام بن عروة عن أبيه عن عائشة رضي الله عنها فبيقين نعلم أن هشاما قد سمع من أبيه وأن أباه قد سمع من عائشة رضي الله عنها، كما نعلم أن عائشة رضي الله عنها قد سمعت من النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، وقد يجوز إذا لم يقل هشام في رواية يرويها عن أبيه سمعت أن أخبرني أن يكون بينه وبين أبيه في تلك الرواية إنسان آخر أخبره بها عن أبيه ولم يسمعها هو من أبيه لما أحب أن يرويها مرسلا ولا يسندها إلى من سمعها منه وكما
He says, yeah. So now this is the reply, right? So it's the reason that makes you consider. It's almost like he's speaking to you now. The reason that makes you consider report to be lacking in authenticity and as such should not be taken as evidence is that it may be mursal. So the reason why you're saying we can't accept it, right, or that is not authentic, is the fact that it is a mursal hadith. So he said, then you must not accept as authentic any unspecified chain of transmission unless you confirm that every reporter in the chain actually heard it from the one before him. Right? So now we done many hadith. Right? If you go there and you find the narration that you say someone is reporting from another person, but they're not always using the word haddasana or haddasani, right? Or sami'atu, right? Saying an, right? Which we explained before is a person is not the mudallis, there's no problem with using this term an. Right? So he's saying that, however, if he's claiming that you have to have the story terms, then how is it possible that you accept hadith like this? All of these hadiths you have to reject until you come across something that where he's actually using the words that he heard from this person. So they given an example here. They say take the hadith, right, with the following chain. Hisham ibn Urwa from his father, from Aisha. Right? So he says that we know that Hisham heard from his father. And that his father heard from Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, and Aisha radiallahu ta'ala heard from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. If Hisham reports something from his father without saying, I heard my father say, or my father reported to me, without him saying that, it is possible that the report included another reporter between him and his father. It may be that that person informed him of that hadith from his father and that he himself did not hear it directly from his father, but he preferred to report it in a mursal fashion, right? Without specifying the one he heard it from.
وكما يمكن ذلك في هشام عن أبيه فهو أيضا ممكن في أبيه عن عائشة رضي الله عنها، وكذلك كل إسناد لحديث ليس فيه ذكر سماع بعضهم من بعض، وإن كان قد عرف في الجملة أن كل واحد منهم قد سمع من صاحبه سماعا كثيرا، فجائز لكل واحد منهم أن ينزل في بعض الرواية فيسمع من غيره عنه بعض أحاديثه ثم يرسله عنه أحيانا ولا يسمي من سمع منه، وينشط أحيانا فيسمي الذي حمل عنه الحديث ويترك الإرسال. أو ما قلنا من هذا موجود في الحديث مستفيض من فعل ثقات المحدثين وأئمة أهل العلم، وسنذكر من رواياتهم على الجهة التي ذكرنا عددا يستدل بها على أكثر منها إن شاء الله تعالى.
Okay. This is what we have pointed out is Hisham reporting from his father also applies to his father reporting from Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. In fact, it applies to every chain of transmission where the reporters do not specify that they heard directly from the one before them. You understand what's happening? Huh? So now we know that in general, every one of them listened to his teacher on numerous occasions. Nevertheless, it is possible that each one of them might have heard from someone else some of the hadith reported by his teacher, and he might have quoted him indirectly without specifying the one he heard it from. And another thing, occasionally, that he might specify the one from whom he learned the hadith, referring thus to reporting it in a mursal fashion. Alright? Understand? He might mention who he heard it from through that person's teacher, or he might skip that person. So they say what we have said here is plenty and agreed upon by reliable hadith scholars and reporters as well as leading scholars. So now we say that we'll mention some number of their reports in a way we have explained to give some examples, inshallah. Okay, so we're going to get it. Yes, okay. I mean, okay.
ومن ذلك أن أيوب السختيانية وابن المبارك ووكيع وابن نمير وجماعة غيرهم وروى عن هشام بن عروة عن أبيه عن عائشة رضي الله عنها كنت أطيب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لحله ولحرمه بأطيب ما أجد. فروى هذه الرواية بعينها الليث بن سعد وداود العطار وحميد بن أسود ووهيب بن خالد وأبو أسامة عن هشام قال أخبرنا عثمان بن عروة عن عن عائشة رضي الله عنها النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. وروى هشام عن أبيه عن عائشة رضي الله عنها كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا اعتكف يدني إلي رأسه فأرجله وأنا حائض. فرواها بعينها مالك بن أنس عن الزهري عن عروة عن عمرة عن عائشة رضي الله عنها عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. وروى الزهري وصالح بن حسان عن أبي سلمة عن عائشة رضي الله عنها كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقبل وهو صائم. فقال يحيى.
So you're giving the example of Ayub al-Sakhtiyani, Ibn Mubarak al-Baqi, and Umayr, and several other reports from Hisham ibn Urwa, from his father, from Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, who said, I used to apply perfume to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he released himself from Ihram. And when he was about to start his consecration using the best perfume I could find, right, come out of it. So, they say thus, very hadith is reported by Lays ibn Sa'd, Dawud al-Akhtar, Humayd ibn Aswad, Wahayd ibn Khalid, and Abu Usama from Hisham, who said Usman ibn Urwa reported to me from Urwa, from Aisha, from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Hisham reports from his father, from Aisha, who said when the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was staying in the masjid to itikaf, he would bring his head close to me and I would comb his hair even though I was in menstruation. He says this very hadith is also reported by Malik ibn Anas and Zuhri and Urwa from Amra, from Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, peace, and from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Zuhri and Salih ibn Abi Hassan report from Abu Salama, from Aisha radiallahu ta'ala, that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam used to kiss his wife when he was fasting. Yahya ibn Abi Kathir says that this hadith Abu Salama Rahman reported to me that Urwa ibn Abdul Aziz reported to him that Urwa reported to him that Aisha reported to him that the Prophet ﷺ used to kiss her when he was fasting.
قال
Right?
يحيى
So the time done. We're gonna stop. So all this is giving examples to what he is saying now before. He's saying that they are all narrating, right? And this narration has been narrated by others also. So the narration itself is correct, but in the chain, there is no wording that is being used to say that was definitive that they heard from the person they are narrating from. So he's saying that how come these hadiths can be quoted or be used as evidence or be considered as authentic when they themselves they are not using this word to say that they definitely heard from this person. If you're going to say that, what we said before, it's always that khabar ahad is probability. Alright? So in this case here, you'll say that there is that sense of probability that they didn't actually hear from the person they narrating from. They could have heard it from somebody else. Right? So if you're going to accept that here, with that probability being there, then in other cases with that probability being there, you should also accept it. As long as the conditions are met. And those conditions is that the person should be a moon, mutalis, a liar, etc. Right? We go on tomorrow, inshallah. Subhanallah wa bihamdih.